The morning mist clung to the towering violet ferns of Redania as Jasper Vale made his way through the alien forest, his specimen collection kit slung across his shoulder. 3 years of solitary research on this distant world had taught him to move quietly through the bioluminescent undergrowth, disturbing as little as possible while he catalogued the planet's remarkable flora. His weathered field notebook was filled with sketches and observations of plants that would revolutionize botanical understanding back on Earth. Twisted vines that conducted electricity, flowers that changed color based on soil composition, and trees that seemed to communicate through subsonic vibrations. Every day brought new discoveries that made his self-imposed exile worthwhile. Jasper paused beside a cluster of crystalline blooms, their surfaces refracting the filtered sunlight into rainbow patterns. He was so absorbed in adjusting his collection net's position to capture pollen samples that he didn't notice the graceful figure moving through the forest canopy above. Nira Kess had been observing the human for 3 days now, her research nearly complete. According to her people's intelligence files, humans were dangerous apex predators who had somehow stumbled onto advanced technology despite their primitive nature. They were known to consume anything they could catch, including other sentient species. But this particular human confused her. Instead of hunting or destroying, he seemed to spend his time carefully studying plants, taking notes, and treating every specimen with remarkable gentleness. Her scientific curiosity had gotten the better of her caution, and she'd been documenting his behavior from the treetops. As she leaned forward for a better view of his latest activity, the branch beneath her feet gave way with a sharp crack. Nira tumbled through the air, her pale blue skin shifting to a deeper indigo with alarm. She twisted desperately, trying to catch another branch, but instead found herself tangled in Jasper's collection net. The fine mesh contracted automatically, designed to secure specimens without damage, and suddenly she was suspended 3 feet off the ground, wrapped like a cocoon. Jasper spun around at the sound of crashing vegetation, his green eyes widening as he took in the sight before him. Caught in his net was the most beautiful being he'd ever encountered. Her skin was the color of glacier ice with an opalescent quality that made it shimmer in the dappled light. Long silver hair cascaded around her shoulders, and her large violet eyes stared at him with unmistakable terror. She was clearly not human, but she was undeniably lovely. Her form was humanoid but more delicate, with elongated limbs and elegant features that suggested both intelligence and grace. She wore a form-fitting suit of some metallic fabric that seemed to respond to her movements. "Please don't eat me," the words burst from her lips in perfect, albeit accented, English. "I know what you are, what your species does to others, but I promise I won't taste good. I've been living on processed nutrients for weeks." Jasper blinked in surprise, then couldn't help but laugh. It wasn't a cruel sound, but one of genuine amusement mixed with bewilderment. "Eat you? Is that what you think I'm going to do?" The alien woman's eyes darted between his face and the net holding her suspended. You're not going to consume me." "The only thing I consume regularly is terrible coffee and field rations," Jasper said, moving closer to examine the net's mechanism. "Hold still, let me get you down from there." "You're not going to devour me?" she asked again, hope creeping into her melodious voice. "I prefer my conversations with fewer cannibalistic implications," Jasper replied, working to release the net's catch. "I'm Jasper Vale, by the way. Botanist, not gourmand." "I'm Nira Kess," she said softly, then yelped as the net suddenly released. Jasper caught her easily, surprised by how light she felt despite being nearly as tall as he was. For a moment they remained frozen in that position, her violet eyes locked with his green ones, both of them acutely aware of the warmth where their bodies touched. Then Jasper carefully set her on her feet, stepping back to give her space. "Are you hurt?" Nira smoothed her suit and checked herself over, her skin gradually returning to its pale blue color. "No, I don't think so. Thank you for not eating me." "That's probably going to be the strangest thing anyone thanks me for today," Jasper said with a grin. "What were you doing up in the trees? And how do you know English?" Nira hesitated, studying his face. Everything about this encounter contradicted what she'd been taught about humans. He was gentle, articulate, and showed no signs of the savage aggression her people described. I was studying you. Studying me? Jasper raised an eyebrow. That's fair, I suppose. I've been studying your planet for 3 years now. You're a scientist? Neera's eyes lit up with interest, her skin taking on a subtle golden tinge that Jasper found mesmerizing. Botanist, specifically. I came here to document Redania's unique plant life. He gestured toward his equipment. What kind of studying were you doing? Neera looked embarrassed, her skin shifting to a soft pink. Xenoanthropology. My people have been observing humans from a distance. Trying to understand your species. And what's the current theory? Jasper asked, genuinely curious. That you're extremely dangerous predators who somehow develop space travel despite being driven purely by aggressive instincts, Neera admitted. But you're nothing like what we were told. Jasper laughed again. Well, I suppose some humans fit that description. But most of us are just trying to figure out our place in the universe, same as anyone else. They stood there for a moment, taking in the implications of their encounter. The forest around them hummed with alien life, bioluminescent flowers beginning to glow as the canopy blocked more of the sunlight. My research station isn't far from here, Jasper said finally. Would you like to come back with me? You look like you could use some rest, and I have actual food, not just field rations. Neera hesitated again, but something in his kind eyes made her decision easy. I would like that very much. As they walked through the forest together, Jasper couldn't help but notice how gracefully Neera moved, her feet barely disturbing the undergrowth. Her skin continued to shift colors subtly, and he found himself fascinated by the way it seemed to reflect her emotions. So, he said conversationally, I'm guessing unauthorized xenoanthropology isn't exactly standard procedure for your people. Neera's skin went pink again. Not exactly. I may have taken some liberties with my research parameters. A rebel scientist. I like that, Jasper grinned at her. I did the same thing, in a way. Came out here alone against all recommendations because I wanted to study Verdanian botany without interference from research committees and bureaucratic oversight. Really? Neera looked at him with new interest. You chose exile for your research? Chose freedom, Jasper corrected. There's a difference. His research station came into view through the trees, a modest prefabricated structure that had been expanded and modified over his years of residence. Solar panels glinted on the roof, and a small garden of earth vegetables grew beside the entrance alongside some carefully cultivated Verdanian specimens. It's beautiful, Neera said softly, taking in the harmonious blend of human technology and alien nature. Thank you. It's taken me 3 years to get it just right. Jasper opened the door and gestured for her to enter first. Welcome to my home. The interior was cozy and lived in, with bookshelves lining the walls and specimens in various stages of analysis scattered across work tables. Large windows offered views of the forest, and the whole space felt more like a sanctuary than a research facility. Neera moved slowly through the room, her violet eyes taking in everything with scientific curiosity. Your living space is so different from what our file suggested. We expected something more primitive. What exactly do your files say about humans? Jasper asked, settling into a chair and gesturing for her to do the same. That you're barely civilized hunters who destroy everything you encounter, Neera admitted, settling gracefully into the chair across from him. That you consume other sentient species and show no regard for non-human life. Jasper was quiet for a moment, processing this. I suppose some humans have done terrible things. Every species probably has individuals who don't represent their best qualities. But judging all of us by our worst examples isn't very scientific. Neera's skin shifted to a deeper blue, which Jasper was beginning to recognize as embarrassment or shame. You're right. I volunteered for this assignment because I suspected our understanding was incomplete. Seeing you work, watching how carefully you treat the plants, how you've integrated your presence here without destroying the ecosystem, it challenges everything we thought we knew. And what do you think now? Jasper asked softly. Nira met his eyes, her skin taking on a warm golden glow. I think your species is far more complex and fascinating than we ever imagined. And I think I may have just made the most important discovery of my career. The silence that followed was charged with possibility, both of them aware that this encounter had changed something fundamental about how their species might interact. Outside, the forest's evening chorus began, a symphony of alien sounds that seemed to celebrate this first true meeting between their worlds. Jasper stood and moved to prepare some food, while Nira continued to explore his collection, both of them beginning to understand that they'd stumbled into something much more significant than either had expected when the day began. The atmospheric processor's warning alarms shrieked across the terraforming station as Marcus Reed sprinted through the maintenance corridors, his tool belt jangling with each hurried step. 6 months of routine maintenance on the orbital platform above Kepler, 442b had never prepared him for an emergency like this. The processor that regulated the station's artificial atmosphere was overloading, and if it exploded, it would take half the station with it. Marcus burst into the main processing chamber, immediately hit by a wave of superheated air that made his eyes water. Through the steam and warning lights, he spotted something that made his heart skip a beat. A figure was collapsed near the primary intake valve, motionless and clearly in distress. As he approached, Marcus realized this wasn't a human crew member. The being before him had skin that shifted between deep turquoise and silver, with an otherworldly luminescence that pulsed weakly like a dying star. Her hair flowed like liquid mercury, and even unconscious, she possessed an ethereal beauty that took his breath away. But there was no time for wonder. The processor readings were critical, and they both had maybe minutes before the whole system went critical. Marcus scooped the alien woman into his arms, surprised by her lightness, and carried her to the emergency shelter just outside the chamber. "Stay here," he whispered, though he wasn't sure she could hear him. Then he turned back to face the failing machinery. The next 20 minutes were a blur of desperate engineering. Marcus rerouted power systems, manually adjusted pressure valves, and literally held failing components together with emergency patches while the automated systems slowly regained stability. His hands were burned, his clothes were soaked with sweat, and his lungs ached from the toxic fumes, but gradually the alarms fell silent. When he finally stumbled back to the shelter, the alien woman was awake, her large silver eyes watching him with a mixture of gratitude and curiosity. Her skin had returned to its beautiful turquoise shade, now pulsing with what seemed like a gentle bioluminescent heartbeat. "You saved my life," she said in perfect English, her voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Just doing my job," Marcus replied, slumping against the wall and trying to catch his breath. "Though I have to admit, rescuing beautiful aliens wasn't in the maintenance manual." She smiled at that, and her skin brightened with golden highlights. "I am Zelda Tan, diplomatic observer from the Aquarian Collective. And you are very much not what I expected from a human engineer." Marcus Reed, he introduced himself, studying her fascinating features. "And what exactly were you expecting?" "Someone more, utilitarian. Cold. Focused only on machinery and efficiency." Zelda sat up slowly, wincing slightly. "Our intelligence report suggested humans view everything, including other beings, as resources to be exploited." Marcus felt a familiar pang of disappointment. It seemed every alien species had the same misconceptions about humanity. "Let me guess, you were here conducting unauthorized observations of the savage human colonizers?" Zelda's skin flushed with silver embarrassment. "Perhaps I should explain. I was investigating the terraforming operation when the atmospheric processor malfunctioned. I became trapped in the chamber when the emergency locks engaged." "Investigating for what purpose?" Marcus asked, though his tone was curious rather than accusatory. "The Aquarian Collective is concerned about human expansion into our region of space. We wanted to understand your true intentions and capabilities before making formal contact." Zelda's bioluminescent patterns shifted nervously. "But what I witnessed today challenges everything we thought we knew about your species." Marcus stood and extended his hand to help her up. When their fingers touched, he felt a surprising warmth, and Zelda's skin illuminated with soft golden swirls where they made contact. "You risked your life to save me," she continued, allowing him to pull her to her feet but not letting go of his hand. "Even though I was a stranger, an alien who was essentially spying on your people." "Life is life," Marcus said simply. "Doesn't matter what species it is." They stood there for a moment, hands still connected, both aware of the electric tension building between them. Zelda's bioluminescence began pulsing in a rhythm that seemed to match Marcus's heartbeat. "I should report back to my ship," Zelda said softly, but made no move to leave. "You should," Marcus agreed, equally reluctant to break the connection. "But maybe you'd like to see more of the station first. Get a better understanding of what we're really doing here." "That would be educational," Zelda replied, her skin brightening with what Marcus was beginning to recognize as pleasure. Over the next several hours, Marcus gave Zelda a comprehensive tour of the terraforming operation. He explained how they were carefully modifying the planet's atmosphere to support multiple forms of life, not just human. He showed her the biodiversity preservation protocols, the environmental impact studies, and the plans for sustainable development that would leave room for any indigenous life they might discover. "This is remarkable," Zelda said as they stood in the observation deck, looking down at the planet below. "Our intelligence was completely wrong. You're not conquerors at all." "Some humans are," Marcus admitted honestly. "But most of us just want to find a place to call home without destroying what's already there." Zelda turned to face him fully, her skin now displaying complex patterns of gold and turquoise that seemed to dance in the starlight. "Your species is far more sophisticated than we realized. And you personally are." She paused, searching for words. "What?" Marcus asked, moving closer. "Extraordinary," she finished softly. The space between them seemed to crackle with possibility. Marcus reached up to gently touch her cheek, marveling at how her skin felt like warm silk and began glowing brighter under his touch. "This is probably not allowed by either of our people's protocols," he said quietly. "Probably not," Zelda agreed, leaning into his touch. "The Aquarian Collective has strict rules about fraternization with other species." "And Earth Central would have a field day with this," Marcus added. "Human engineer falls for alien diplomat. They'd study us both like lab specimens. Should we care?" Zelda asked, her silver eyes intense. Marcus answered by drawing her into a gentle kiss. Her skin erupted in brilliant patterns of light, like aurora borealis dancing across her entire body. The sensation was unlike anything he'd ever experienced, and when they finally broke apart, they were both breathing heavily. "Your people," Marcus said, still holding her close, "how do they show affection?" "Through bioluminescence," Zelda explained, her skin continuing to pulse with golden light. "The patterns become more complex and beautiful the deeper the emotion. What you just witnessed, that level of display is reserved for the deepest connections." "And humans?" "Show me," she whispered. Marcus pulled her closer, running his fingers through her mercury-like hair, pressing kisses along her luminescent skin. Every touch seemed to create new patterns of light, until she was glowing like a living constellation. They spent the rest of the cycle in Marcus's quarters, talking, laughing, and exploring their connection with the wonder of two beings discovering something neither had expected to find. Zelda shared stories of the underwater cities of her homeworld, while Marcus described Earth's diverse landscapes and cultures. "I have to ask," Marcus said as they lay together, watching the stars through his quarters viewport, "what happens now? You can't exactly file a standard diplomatic report about this." Zelda's skin rippled with thoughtful silver patterns. "No, I cannot. But perhaps that's not the real question." "What is?" "The real question is whether what we found here is worth the consequences we'll both face." She turned to look at him, her expression serious. "Because make no mistake, Marcus Reed, both our peoples will see this as a betrayal of species loyalty." Marcus considered this, tracing gentle patterns on her glowing skin. "You know what I think?" "What?" "I think maybe it's time both our species learned that love doesn't recognize borders, whether they're planetary or biological. Zelda's entire body erupted in brilliant golden light, the most beautiful display Marcus had yet seen from her. You would risk your career, your standing with your people, for someone you've known less than a day. I'd risk it for the chance to know you for a lifetime, Marcus replied without hesitation. The silence that followed was comfortable, full of possibility and hope. Outside, the stars wheeled slowly past the viewport, the same stars that shone on both their homeworlds, suddenly seeming less like barriers and more like bridges. There will be others, Zelda said eventually. Other humans and Aquarians who might find each other across the species divide. We could be the beginning of something unprecedented. Or we could be completely crazy, Marcus pointed out with a grin. Perhaps both, Zelda laughed, her skin dancing with amused patterns. But I've never felt anything as right as this feels. As the station's artificial dawn began to lighten the viewport, they both knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Their love might be unprecedented, even forbidden, but it was also undeniably real. And in a universe where species lived in isolation and fear of each other, perhaps unprecedented love was exactly what was needed to light the way toward a better future. The crystalline formations of Minerva Prime caught the binary sunset in spectacular fashion, casting rainbow prisms across the rocky landscape as Devon Cross made his evening rounds around the Geological Research Station. 6 months of solo work studying the planet's unique mineral compositions had given him a deep appreciation for its stark beauty, but tonight something felt different. A metallic glint near the eastern cliff face caught his attention. Devon adjusted his field scanner and moved closer, his boots crunching on the scattered crystal fragments that littered the ground. What he found made him drop his equipment in shock. A figure lay motionless among the rocks, clearly not human but undeniably feminine in form. Her skin appeared to be made of living mercury, shifting between solid and liquid states even as she lay unconscious. Her hair was like spun platinum, and her features possessed an otherworldly elegance that took Devon's breath away. But what truly amazed him was her ability to change. Even unconscious, her form seemed to be adapting, her mercurial skin taking on textures and patterns that mimicked the surrounding crystal formations. She was a shapeshifter, and apparently her body was instinctively trying to camouflage itself. Devon quickly checked for injuries, careful not to startle her changing form. Her breathing was shallow but steady, and he could detect no obvious wounds. Gently, he lifted her in his arms, surprised by how she seemed to weigh almost nothing, as if her density could shift along with her shape. Back at the research station, Devon laid her on the medical bed in his small infirmary. The sterile environment seemed to confuse her adaptive abilities, and her skin cycled through various textures and colors as if searching for something to mimic. When her eyes finally fluttered open, Devon found himself looking into irises that swirled like liquid gold. She sat up quickly, her form immediately solidifying into a more human-like appearance, though her skin retained its metallic sheen. "Where am I?" she asked, her voice musical and strangely resonant. "My research station," Devon replied, pulling up a chair beside the bed. "I found you unconscious near the cliffs. I'm Devon Cross, geologist. Are you hurt?" She studied him with those mesmerizing eyes, her form subtly shifting as she observed him. "I am Kira Nyth of the Stellarian Collective. And you are, not what I expected." Devon raised an eyebrow. "Let me guess, another unauthorized study of the primitive humans." Kira's skin flushed with what appeared to be embarrassment, the mercury-like surface taking on a soft rose tint. "You know about our research protocols?" "Word gets around," Devon said with a gentle smile. "What gave you away was the fact that you were studying mineral formations the same way I do, except you were trying to mimic them. Pretty clever camouflage technique, by the way." "You observed me?" Kira asked, her shape becoming more defined and human-like as she relaxed. "For about a week. I was curious about the new geological phenomena that kept appearing in different locations." Devon chuckled. "Took me a while to realize the phenomena was actually a person." Kira's form rippled with what Devon was learning to recognize as amusement. I was attempting to understand human research methodologies without revealing my presence. Your approach to scientific inquiry is, surprisingly methodical. As opposed to what? Devon asked. Our intelligence suggested humans were destructive and careless, taking resources without regard for long-term consequences. Her skin shifted to a cooler, more metallic tone. But watching you work, seeing how carefully you catalog and preserve specimens, how you study the ecosystem interactions, it contradicts everything we thought we knew. Devon felt the familiar frustration of his species being consistently misunderstood. What exactly do your files say about us? That you're barely evolved primates who stumbled onto advanced technology and use it to consume and destroy everything you encounter. Kira's shape became more fluid as she spoke, unconsciously expressing her discomfort with the topic. And now? Devon asked. Kira's form solidified again, taking on a more distinctly feminine appearance that somehow complemented Devon's own features. Now I believe our intelligence gatherers may have only observed your worst representatives. They spent the next several hours in Devon's laboratory, where he showed her his research methods and findings. Kira was fascinated by his approach to understanding planetary geology through both scientific analysis and intuitive observation. You don't just study the rocks, she observed, her skin taking on patterns that mimicked the mineral samples around them. You try to understand their relationship to the entire planetary system. Everything's connected, Devon explained, showing her his comprehensive charts linking geological activity to atmospheric conditions, mineral distribution, and potential life-supporting environments. You can't understand one aspect without understanding how it fits into the whole. This is exactly what Stellarian science teaches, Kira said, her excitement causing her form to become more radiant. We believe in holistic understanding, seeing the connections between all things. Then why do your people see humans as disconnected destroyers? Devon asked. Kira was quiet for a moment, her shape becoming more thoughtful, less defined. Perhaps because we've been looking at you from too great a distance. True understanding requires closer observation. How much closer? Devon asked, moving nearer to where she stood examining his mineral collection. Much closer, Kira replied softly, her form becoming more solid and defined as he approached. When Devon reached out to touch her hand, Kira's skin responded immediately, taking on the texture and warmth of human flesh while retaining its subtle metallic sheen. The sensation was unlike anything he'd ever experienced, she felt completely real and human, yet uniquely herself. This is remarkable, he whispered. You can become anything. Not anything, Kira corrected, her voice becoming softer, more intimate. I can only reflect what I truly see and understand. Right now, I see someone gentle, intelligent, passionate about knowledge. Someone who treats the universe with respect and wonder. And I see someone who's been alone for so long that she forgot what connection feels like, Devon replied, his thumb tracing over her transformed skin. Kira's entire form shimmered with emotion. Stellarians don't typically form deep individual bonds. We exist as part of a collective consciousness, sharing thoughts and experiences across great distances. But here, with you, I feel, separate. Individual. It's terrifying and wonderful. I've been alone on this planet for 6 months, Devon said. I thought I preferred solitude for my work. But meeting you, I realize I was just afraid of letting anyone get close enough to understand what I really care about. Their first kiss was transformative in ways neither had expected. Kira's form rippled and changed, becoming more human while somehow becoming more herself. Devon felt as if he was discovering not just another person, but an entirely new way of experiencing connection. As the night progressed, they shared stories of their worlds and their work. Kira demonstrated her shape-shifting abilities, becoming different minerals and crystal formations while explaining the Stellarian approach to understanding matter and energy. Devon showed her his collection of rare geological specimens, each one telling a story about planetary formation and cosmic history. We're both studying the same thing, Kira realized as dawn approached. The fundamental structures that hold worlds together. And now we're discovering what holds people together, Devon added, pulling her close. Kira's form settled into a shape that was uniquely hers, distinctly feminine but retaining the flowing, adaptive quality that made her so beautiful. Her skin held the soft glow of precious metals, and her features combined the best of human and stellarian characteristics. Devon, she said seriously, what we've found here goes beyond personal connection. Our research, combined with my people's collective knowledge, could revolutionize how both our species understand planetary sciences. You mean work together officially? Devon asked. I mean something unprecedented, Kira replied, her form becoming more radiant with excitement. A true collaboration between species, sharing knowledge and perspectives to achieve understanding neither could reach alone. Devon considered this. It would require both our governments to acknowledge that interspecies cooperation is not just possible, but beneficial. More than that, Kira said, her shape becoming more determined, more solid. It would require them to accept that the connections between individuals can transcend species boundaries entirely. Are you ready for that kind of challenge? Devon asked. Kira's response was to transform her hand into living crystal that perfectly matched the geological samples they'd been studying, then slowly return it to warm flesh that intertwined with his fingers. I've spent my entire existence adapting to my environment, she said. Now I want to help create an environment where adaptation means connection, not camouflage. As the binary suns of Minerva Prime rose over the crystal formations, casting new patterns of light across the landscape, Devon and Kira stood together in his laboratory, surrounded by the tools and specimens of their shared passion for understanding the universe. They both knew that their connection would face skepticism, fear, and possibly outright hostility from both their peoples. But they also knew that some discoveries were too important to abandon, even when they challenged everything previously believed possible. In the growing daylight, Kira's form stabilized into something that was purely her own, a being of living light and adaptable matter who had chosen to become more human through love, while somehow becoming more herself than she'd ever been before. Whatever happens next, Devon said, we'll face it together. Together, Kira agreed, her entire being glowing with the promise of a future where love and understanding could transform not just individuals, but entire civilizations. Their story was just beginning, but already they could sense that they were part of something larger, a pattern of connection emerging across the galaxy that would challenge every assumption about what was possible between species who had never imagined they could find common ground, much less common hearts.